I'm getting ready to take this CVT apart. I got back from the long ride. I've got a 2.82 to 1 ratio in it. And so what I thought I would do is edit together a series of video to just showing taking this thing apart, taking the primary off, getting the belt changed out. I'm going to have to do it in stages because of the length of the upload for YouTube. So what I'm going to do, I'm showing you the Grizzly set here. It's ready to go. I can hit the key and drive it. Got the torque wrench laying on the seat. I've got a few tools laying here on the running board. I've got this set of footrests in the way, so it takes an extra socket because I used longer bolts in the original holes where the running board bolts were to mount the plate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this off. I'm going to remove the 6 bolts here, 2 bolts here. I'm going to remove the running board, get this cover taken off, get these perimeter bolts taken off, and these 2 that go into the cage. Get that set aside, and then I'll turn this video camera back on and show the process of hooking up this vise that I've made for the primary that just clamps around the side so that I don't have to use an impact wrench, and taking the torque wrench and the primary nut off. Then what we'll do is we'll get set up here on the front rack. I got a towel laid out. I'm going to pop the cover off of the primary. I actually have replaced the Phillips head screws with a hex head bolt. Don't have to have an impact, don't have to worry about stripping things out. What I want to do is I'll show you the amount of grease that is required, or that I use, so that the sliders are properly greased and the weights can pick up a little bit and work in their sliding. I'm also going to point out the difference in this uncut cam plate versus the cut cam plate that I've got in it that I'm going to leave in it. Also, I'll show you what I can, the differences in the belts. This one's an older belt that's a little narrower. I use that in combination with some other parts along with the shim to get to the 3.5. Then what I'll do is I'll button everything back up. I'll show you the thing running. This should take about an hour, but since I have a 15-minute limit on video, I'm going to go ahead and edit some of this stuff out and try to put it all together in one video for the new people that are looking into the mods on the CVT. I'll get back with you in a little bit. Okay. Took the bolts out of the cover, got the seat taken off, got the side cover off. This is my way to fix the rattling heat shield. I got one wire broke, so I'll have to tie some of that back on there. Got tired of spending $40 a set for these bolts and the gaskets that go on them. Anyway, just hold the camera and get this off. Yeah, it's a little tough. And inside of the cover's got a little dirt in it from the dust and the grime. Here we can give you a little spin. I'll take this out in the light. Give you a little spin on the wear in the cover. I've had a couple people ask about that. You can see where that belt hogged out the gasket material and then wore into the cover itself. Mostly it drug cover material from this point, which would be on the top side, and looks like it just kind of brought it around and faded out and then started back again. I don't mind this kind of debris. There's not any oil or grease being slung around in the cover from the CVT, so the seal's still good in the cover. Get this set aside. Haven't got to the cover yet, but before I take anything apart, let me just line this old mark up here real quick. And let's see here. We'll just use this over here somewhere around 9 o'clock. That's there's two. I got my secondary mark coming back around, and that's about it right there. It was down in here somewhere, so I called it when I set it up a 282. That's the way it measured out. But after 1,000 miles, you can see the belt debris in here. You can see dirt and dust. I'm sure that a little bit of wear on that belt increased the pulley ratio. There's another thing I can just see right here. Pulled the belt in two. Good thing I'm taking this apart. You gonna see that crack right there? What I had done is I had used one of these old Dayco belts that Randy had been sending me because it was white and it was new. There's a belt that's coming apart with very little use, and it doesn't have much of an aggressive pulley ratio on it. Back here you can see there's quite a bit of gap in the cover. I've hogged all of that out with the 3.5 that I'm going to be going back to. So here you go. This is a very good indication of why to stick with the original manufacturer equipment on these belts. I guess I was just lucky that that thing didn't fly apart when I was 100 miles from the house. Anyway, I'll get this thing turned off and fired back up when I get the cage off. I'm going to install this wooden vise that I made for the primary and get ready, and I'll pop all of this apart and we'll go back and forth on the video. Alright, this is the vise. Not a real scientific thing. It's a 2x6 ripped in half. I went ahead and left the arms long on it. Got the all thread in place. Everything's tightened down. Got the torque wrench there. It's about the same length as the handle. That way what I can do is I can grab one and push to loosen. I can grab the other one and pull to tighten. I don't have to have it braced or chalked up against any other parts of the plastic here, where I get a little bit of flex, and then the torque wrench has to pull harder. You know, it has more range of motion in it. This way I can hold it with one hand and pull with the other, and it's not bound up down here. I didn't want to mess with these brake lines and all this other mess over here. Anyway, I'll have to go ahead and install a bolt here in the secondary real quick to relieve a little bit of that belt pressure, and I'll get right back with you. Okay, now that I've got the bolt in, you can see the wrench hanging here. Just took a little bit of tension off of this belt. I actually don't loosen it all the way up myself, just for the simple fact you get to pulling and pushing and you slip on something. What people are talking about is this movable sheave sliding in. When the cam plate is fixed on the collar, the weights in between can fall out of the channels. On disassembly, that's not a big deal, because you're going to take it apart anyway, put everything back where it needs to be. It's during the reassembly that what you got to be careful is to use your finger and your thumb and hold these together so that you don't create a bigger gap in the weight channels, allowing the weights to fall out. When I get this thing put back together, I'll show you a little more about that. Okay, took the torque wrench, loosened up the nut here a little bit. Now you can see it's done by hand. You can see that belt starting to move. What that is, and what these guys are talking about, is the pressure of this belt inside this sheave between these faces. That's what we're trying to describe to the new people, the first timers. When you're putting this thing back together and that belt's wedged down in there and you start to clamp this, what you're actually doing is you're pinching the belt. Part of the 100 pounds of torque is tension on the belt. It's not fully applied to the nut against the collar for the cam plate. The first time that that belt moves, due to the deflection of the weights, the cam plate comes loose because the nut wasn't properly torqued. So I don't know if you can see all of this, but I'm hoping this helps. Okay, got the vise off. Belts, I took a little more tension off of it. Here's the socket. Get this nut out of the way. slide the primary off. This is the movable sheave of the primary pulley. This is the fixed. Oh, got my weights on my shim setting right up here. Go ahead and slide this off. And I'll just set it right here for a minute. Now, doing this one hand is the first time for me, but what you can do is you can slide that collar out of the way. Find a place to set it. You take these shims and you just slide them on. This is Coops Mod 1, I guess is what he called it. Put the collar back on. And when I go to reassemble this, I'll get these up there just a little closer. What you've done is you've given this thing that much more room as far as width between these pulley faces called sheaves. That's what allows the belt to ride from up in this area down lower to the center of axis on this shaft. When that happens, you actually have a shorter distance of contact between the belt and these sheaves. And since this belt is a constant length, it doesn't stretch, the extra belt that's not on this pulley is what's taken up on the secondary, and that's what makes it get taller and crawl out of the back, which causes the rubbing. The limits to the Yamato system is the size of this diameter and the amount of gap between this pulley and that protective cover that keeps the water and dirt out. While I'm speaking of it, in doing this, I handle these, I get fingerprints on them. I stopped using brake cleaner on these and scuffing them up probably 4,000 years ago, or 4,000 miles ago. I haven't found that belt slips because of fingerprints on this sheave. You guys can go ahead and do what you want. One of the things I always questioned was, every time you scuff this, how much material are you really taking off, and what is it doing to the other facets of the CVT? Take material off, closer here, does it start to slip? Does it put more belt on the secondary? Is it causing additional rub? I just decided to quit doing it. You can do what you want. Just thought I'd point that out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set that primary up on that towel, and we'll get it turned over, and I'll show you what I've done to the cover. Pardon the mess in the garage. First of all, I decided to use a hex head wrench. It's easier to get these things out. I was actually having to tap on them with a little hammer impact. I just got tired of the mess. Go down to the hardware store, replace these bolts. You'll be a lot better off. Also, the only reason I'm really taking this apart, I'm not going to change the weights out. I got the ones that I like. But while I was handling this thing, you could hear it rattling around. You see how that cam plate's not flat? A weight came out. It's somehow lodged and it's not straight in the channel. You never know when you put it under tension. It might pop in, it might not pop out. But we have people posting up, my clutch isn't working right. What happened? It could be something as simple as rotating this thing around, moving it, handling it like I just did, causing the weight to come out. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn this camera off, get these things loose, use my little pry bar. I'm going to pop this cover off, and what I want to do is show you the amount of grease that I have in here. It's the only reason I'm taking this off, just to give you guys an idea, because the way this grease is slung to the outside, it doesn't really stay in the center, how much is in there and what's been working for me.